Welcome everybody back to the Mind Break Radio podcast series. Myself, Jay Hood.
Mel Dash.
Yeah, we're here. We back every Tuesday. We're here. We're streaming live right now. You can check us out at Vision. I apologize, man. It's been a long day. ListenVisionLive.com. We also on our all our social media outlets, Facebook, Facebook Live. You can check me out at Jerome Hood. And you can check my partner out at
Ramel Dash.
Yeah, so before we get into today's series, we got a good show. We got a good one for you all. We want to thank our sponsors, Bridging the Gap Family Services and God and Light Residential Services as well for being our sponsors here for our Mind Break Radio podcast series. We appreciate everything.
Yep.
Definitely.
And with us being live streaming on Facebook and social media like Instagram as well, I want you all, if you have any questions or comments to address the situations that we are going to be discussing today under the Mind Break Radio segment, feel free to just add any type of input you want. We get to the questions here momentarily. But hey man, I really wanted to know, before we started everything, did you get a chance to see that whole Khalif Browder on Stars?
Yeah, I caught a little bit of it, so I didn't really get to see the whole thing, and I just found out that it's coming on again on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. So what I'm gonna try to do, I'm gonna try to double back and try to watch it again. But I've been hearing bits and pieces, getting people different opinions on the whole situation. But it's definitely an interesting topic, that we all should be able to talk about as well.
Right. No, it's definitely one of those, it's very heavily, I guess, out there in the media right now in terms of, just the brutality from cops and things like that. But what happens behind once they are incarcerated, it's a different type of animal and a different type of dynamic, because, when it comes to Cajun people, you it's a broad range of just overall mental health. And although, some of them may be in there committing crimes, there are those that's been, in there for a crime that they did not even commit.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of those type of situations.
Right, and this situation with Khalif Browder, man, which is unfortunate. It's an old story, right? Mm-hmm. It's a real old story, and highlighting Jay-Z for actually going through this whole docuseries and documenting his life and his upbringing, right, until his departure or his death, right, through the whole transitional period. Okay. But one thing, a couple things that we're going to address here on the show today is just going to be some statistical facts, right, about just being incarcerated or just statistics around incarceration relating to mental health. Yeah. And then also we also have a couple links that we wanted to share, and one of which is just the trailer for the whole Khalif Browder story from what Jay-Z had did for the documentary on Stars. Okay. Which is actually a 6-part documentary, and this was one of 6 that aired last Wednesday. So I believe this coming Wednesday.
Also it's a
6-part series.
Oh, nice.
So they breaking it up that way. And the part 2 is coming on Wednesday, but I want to say that the first half should be coming on before that.
Okay.
You know how they
so
do.
I'm gonna get a chance to finally sit down and watch the whole thing.
Right. No, definitely. I definitely encourage that. And for you who are listening, also, if you haven't had an opportunity to look at it, it's on Stars. And it's about the Khalif Browder story. It's about him being wrongfully accused for a crime that he didn't commit at the age of 16. And in New York, they try you as an adult at 16.
Oh, for real? I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
So, he wasn't even, I think they said they put him in lockup with, like, the juveniles or what have you. But from just the overall footage, the juveniles are more animalistic. They feel like they got a lot more to prove, with the gangs and all that stuff in there that goes on. And around that time was actually one of the key peaks in times where Rikers Island was like the most dangerous jails, or holding cells to be even placed in.
Okay, and I know it was like happened 2013.
13,
so it's been a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important thing is being able to have a dialogue, and us just having this platform to talk about some of these issues. I think that it's the most important thing, being able to talk about these issues that's, surrounding, our society and dealing with the mental health issues that, we all face. Like I said, mental health is not like a bad thing that we should be able to like frown upon. I feel like it's always being frowned upon, but being able to discuss, because who knows if he has somebody to talk to, the situation might have could have.
Right. Could have went different.
Yeah, definitely.
And prior to that, from what I was reading and also from what I was viewing on some of like the other documentaries about the story.
Okay.
He had mental health issues before going in. He actually was a foster kid.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, so he grew up in the foster system where, he already came from that broken family.
Okay.
Right. So I don't want to give you too much of the story. They're gonna explain that on the show and everything. But just to highlight that, he actually was like he actually was a crack baby.
Oh, okay.
So the family that actually adopted him, they adopted him and his other siblings.
Okay.
At the same time.
Was he the oldest out of the?
He wasn't. I don't believe he was. No, he wasn't the oldest. He was like one out of the three. I think he was like the second one, the middle one.
Okay.
But yeah, man. But you never know somebody's story even before going into that type of situation. Dealing with that trauma and stuff growing up.
Okay.
And going into the whole prison system is just for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's.
And I have a scenario I'll get into where I was locked up. I got locked up at one time. I'm really trying to dwell on it, but I got locked up one time, a point in my life. It was just like, nah, yeah, I was just like, this is not where I want to be. Definitely, kind of changed my life around. But, but definitely, like I said, some of the times, I'll sit down or whatever, and just the the post-traumatic stress thing, that's definitely real.
Right.
You start thinking about getting flashbacks and things that might have happened. I'm just like, man, so I can only imagine, in that type of environment,
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that they witnessed and experienced there.
Right. Nah, man, we definitely got to get to that story too. Before we even get to this whole probably Kalief Browder thing, man, I want to hear about that top, your experiences.
My experience?
Yeah, man. But
I don't want to incriminate myself.
Nah. But you can tell us, bits and pieces.
I was, where I was at? I was at Virginia State. I think I was going to school. Might have been like my sophomore year.
Yeah.
Just my mentality was a little bit different, real immature. One, I'm getting caught up in, a little misdemeanor. It was just like a real down time in my life. I had lost my job. I wound up getting locked up, and it was like the time I got locked up was like right around finals. So I'm sitting in the cell. I'm like, man, how am I gonna tell this to my mother? Like, I'm locked up. I'm gonna miss finals, like tuition. I'm like, man, if I get kicked out of school, like this is just gonna be crazy.
Right.
So whatever. So I wound up. This was around 2007. Anyway, I wound up catching an embezzlement charge for stealing. Or whatever. So wound up going to jail. The jail was real lenient towards me, being that I was a student in school. It was my first charge. So what happened was I wound up have to do weekends at the city jail or whatever. Being that I was in school, they gave me like 5 weekends. It was either you could do like 45 days straight, or you could do like 5 weekends in jail, where you had to turn yourself in on Friday. Being I was still in school, it was around finals. I'm like, I can't really swindle, missing my finals or whatever. So I was like, jail, just give me the weekends, man. I'll just have to deal with it. But while I was in there, I was just locked up with, different offenders or whatever. And I was just like, man, the way they was treated, in the cage, it's kind of like animals inside there, man. It was like you get stripped of your freedom. You telling you when to eat, telling you got to get rec time, free time, and all that shit. It was just like a real depressing and down state of my life. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, man, I'm never going to do anything to jeopardize me getting my freedom taken away.
Right. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Everybody has their own story. You know what I'm saying? And some may be that, that to that extent, and some may just be on the cusp because, there's some kids out there that feel like, they can handle certain situations, right? Yeah. And I think this is a great platform for us, as black males also, being able to encourage and empower them, and let them know, it's a different outlet.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, like, with just that whole time period of my life, like I said, it was very down. I was very depressed. I stopped hanging around with some of the people I used to hang out with, type of ordeal. And it was like, man, I just had to really get focused, and put, do things that I wanted to do. But I'm like, man, if I started having all these negative, behaviors or whatever, I'm like, man, I'm just going to end up back in here. So, I kind of really had to take time to reflect. And there's nothing wrong, and the one thing I really learned is you don't really have to change your, everything about yourself. It's more so changing your mindset. Your perspective on things and your mind, and your mindset and everything. So that kind of like helped me. Knowing that kind of helped me, overcome that situation I was in. Like I said, I was in a real dark place. I didn't really have nobody to talk to. I, was shutting down and wasn't going out partying or whatever. It was just like, man, I really got to find my niche and turn this negative into a positive. And I was just blessed to be able to come out of that, that whole situation.
And look at you now, right?
Yeah, with a strong mindset. Whatever.
We gotta get a book written or something. Man.
Yeah, we got book deal. So,
coming soon.
Definitely.
But real quick, I guess before I get to the statistics and everything, I wanted to take a quick commercial break. Quick minute, we're going to be right back. But before going there, I wanted to thank our sponsors again. And I forgot to mention one of them to start off the podcast. But Bridging the Gap Family Services, God and Light Residential Services, and then also the NAACP. I'm actually a member, and I sit on the Behavioral Health Committee there. And wanted to shout them out. They have a lot of great initiatives going on here in the D.C. metro area. Specifically and nationwide, but just being a part of this initiative has been phenomenal. We're doing a lot of things in the community, and next show I'll give you guys an agenda in terms of what things they're going to be working on in the community here pretty soon as well. So we'll be right back here in a minute.
Worked hard the whole day long.
Welcome back to Mind Break Radio. Make sure you tune in every Tuesday, at 4 p.m. on listenvisionlive.com. You can check us on our social media outlets as well. Mind Break Radio on Instagram, on Facebook. Bridging the Gap Family Services on Facebook, Instagram. You want to shout your Instagram out?
Yeah, you can check me out at I'm on Facebook Live right now, but you could check me out on Facebook Live, Jerome Hood. And if you're on IG, Jerome Hood _, you can check us out as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, man. So want to get to it real quick before going into the video footage that we have for the first segment for the whole Kalief Browder case and that whole pretty much docu-series. But just giving a quick amount of statistics. So surveys of inmates indicate that the rate of mental health problems differ by the type of correctional facility. Inmates at local jails have the highest prevalence of mental health problems, with nearly 2/3 of jail inmates. So state prison topped it out. State prison had around 56%. Federal prison had 44%, and then local jails had around 64% of those inmates with the highest prevalence of having those mental health issues. And that makes sense because, like again, back to the whole Rikers Island thing, they have Rikers Island is actually the biggest prison I think in the nation or something like that.
Okay.
Like because it's like a holding cell. It's like where you go before you get sentenced.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah, so it's not even like the long term. That you go. Of course, they figure out if you go upstate or whatever the case may be. But you know, Rikers Island is definitely dangerous, man. I mean, any prison probably is definitely dangerous. I used to watch some Scared Straight shows. You know, off the
definitely
hook,
the
man.
Scared Straight. Definitely will get you right. But I know another thing, like even with like the jail systems, and I know we might touch on this a little bit, but they don't really have anything for like offenders that's getting out or like helping them with like groups type of thing inside the jail.
Right.
You know, like a reentry type of thing where, you know, helping offenders when they get out, you know, because if you think about it, if you was locked up for a certain amount of time, you're accustomed and used to, you know, a certain type of lifestyle.
Right.
And then when you get back into the real world, society,
Yeah.
you know, you just, you know, all over the place type of deal. So I know they probably don't even have like, you know, peer groups or whatever
Right.
for people who's about to get released
Right.
to help them, you know, to maintain and be able to be stable inside the society once they get released.
Right. No, I agree. I totally agree with that statement, especially, you know, a lot of them come back home to their same environment that they were already in before going into jail. So the odds of the recidivism rate for them going back into jail is high because you got to look at the whole dynamic, right? So it's like, you know, you went in there for, say, for example, robbing somebody, and then you hang out with Johnny again when you come back home.
Yeah.
You know, what's the odds of it? You can't get employment. You're a felon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or limited to the type of employment you can receive at the time that you are, you know, released from prison. So I think that the system they do a good job of making sure that they stay in there for a while.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like they should do their job with connecting, you know, these inmates to having a second chance when they are released outside of prison.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, by having some type of reentry programs or connecting with like reentry programs like Reentry America and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's out here, like, you know, locally. But then you have other reentry programs that's, you know, nationwide that people really don't know about because, you know, they get their money, how they get their money from the prison system.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's another thing where it's just like a lack of resources, for a better word. You know, we have a lack of resources, you know, for offenders, or not even for just offenders, just in general. You know, people really don't know about different agencies or different organizations to help them out. You know, once they do get out of prison.
Right. So a lot of the times when individuals incarcerated, you know, they suffer from a lot of mental health issues or dysfunctions while they're in there, right? Actually, some of the most common ones are depression, followed by bipolar disorder.
Okay.
And fewer than half inmates who have mental health problems have never received treatment for those problems. So they're not even, you know, either they're not taking they're not getting medication, or they don't even know. They never probably even been diagnosed while they was in there.
Yeah. So they probably had these issues prior to even going.
They could have even had them prior to going, or they could have even it's common for them to even adapt or get these type of symptoms while they're in there. Like more or less the depression, like the bipolar is more or less, you know, that's more genetics, or, you know, they had that prior to them even, you know, going into the prison system. But like your depression, which, say for example, if an individual, and I'll tell you a quick story, like an individual has solitary confinement, right? And they've never been isolated from human life.
Yeah.
And you put in a dark hole, right?
24 hours.
24 hours or 23 hours out the day, and 1 hour is only good for, you know, you to eat or go outside or make, I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine being in that hellhole.
Right.
Solitary confinement type of thing.
I couldn't imagine just being locked up, right?
Yeah.
And then let alone being
isolated
from everybody. I mean,
so just imagine, you know, you being in solitary confinement and being isolated for so long, and, you know, and just what type of things your mind is just going through, and,
right?
You know, type of being locked up inside there.
Right, man. So, you know, so the ones that haven't received, like for example, like the mental health help or treatment while they was in there, but some of the most common disorders, and I break them down from the most prevalent to the one that's least on the chart. So depression, of course, is going to be the number one. It's like 21%.
Okay.
Bipolar disorder is one that runs around 12% of the population that actually suffers from this type of disorder.
Okay.
Schizophrenia.
Okay.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
Anxiety disorder, and then personality disorder.
Okay.
are the most common type of disorders or dysfunctions that individuals suffer from when being incarcerated.
And I
believe-
think, not to cut you off, to me personally, I think depression and probably post-traumatic stress will probably be like the most common. You
right?
know, even in just dealing with certain things and witnessing certain things. I think those two probably like the most common.
Right.
Moving forward.
Yeah, man. But yeah. So moving forward to the whole Kalief Browder topic and what we wanted to discuss on today's show, and I'm gonna let you take that over real fast for us, and to talk about a little bit about the case.
Okay.
See what's been going on, and then we could get into the video clip.
Okay, so I think for the
yeah.
most part, and I was doing a little research, Kalief Browder was a young male from New York City, I want to say.
Yeah, Bronx,
the
New York.
Bronx, New York. I believe he was falsely accused in 2013. I want to say he was around 16 years old. Falsely accused of a armed robbery of a young lady in a park, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's something about it was like I think it was a young a male that accused him of like robbing his book bag and say he had like $700 in it and
but when they found him, there was no signs of any evidence or anything.
Nope.
So that just messed up on the judicial part or whatever. But anyway, fast forward, he wound up sitting in Rikers Island. He wound up getting transported to Rikers Island for the charge, where he was just sitting there. I want to say waiting his trial, right?
Right.
And you'll see in the documentary, all of the things. Like I said, had their cameras or whatever. As soon as he get in there, I think he got in a fight. Getting jumped by the inmates. And mind you, he's still an adolescent, so you're in this big facility with with adults and adolescents as well. But just imagine you being somewhere, being locked up for a crime that you didn't even do. I think that shit is crazy.
Right.
But more or less though, he wound up getting locked up. Wound up doing like 3 years. I think they wound up releasing him.
Yeah, they want to releasing him.
Okay.
But the craziest part is they wanted him to take the plea deal that was on the table. Of just admitting they did the crime.
Like, to hell with that.
He was like, "Nah, I'm not. What am I admitting to?
Yeah.
And if I ain't do it?"
Yeah. What was the how many years was the plea?
I
8?
I don't know how many years the actual plea deal was for.
Okay.
But in his particular case, it didn't matter how many years it was for because he was like, "Look, I'm trying to get up out of here.
Yeah.
You saying I'm going to be home in the next hour or 2 hours after being interrogated."
Uh-huh.
And then here I'm locked up.
Damn, that's crazy. So he didn't even get the chance to even go home.
He didn't even get a chance to go home post bail. But the bail was $3,000. Bail was $3,000. And his mom, who she had other foster kids.
Okay.
The father divorced her.
Okay.
She didn't have
the bail money.
So the dad, who was initially, I'm giving you a lot of the story, but I'm but y'all could catch it. Y'all could catch it tonight. But the dad, who was like, he works for like the MTA.
Okay.
Right. So he got a good job. Pretty decent. He could probably came with $3,000.
Yeah.
Right. For the bail until he awaited trial or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
But what happened was, prior to him going into like Rikers, he had a misdemeanor charge. I believe it was a misdemeanor charge for like joyriding in a bakery truck.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Okay, so they probably tried to hold him on that.
But the thing was, he was, young, dumb, hanging around with the wrong crowd.
Okay.
Like, most of us are guilty for, do things under pressure sometimes, right? Just, whatever.
Okay.
And he wound up getting, I believe he got probation for that or something like that.
Okay.
And his dad was like, his foster dad was like, if he,
kind of let him sit in there type thing.
But he didn't know, the true extent of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And with Kalief, he was rolling with the, a dude from the hood or the block.
Yeah.
That really wasn't, the best type of company.
Okay.
So they automatically associated him with the company he kept.
Yeah, that's definitely an important key, man. Watch, the company you keep. Definitely. You don't want to get associated with the wrong people. But so moving forward, he wound up doing the 3 years, right?
Yeah.
He wound up doing the 3 years. I don't know how long he was solid, what's it called? again?
Solitary
I'm sorry,
confinement.
solitary confinement or anything.
Mhm.
So he wound up getting released after 3 years.
So, my bad. I
go
cut you
ahead,
off.
go ahead.
So like,
Cause you seen it, so you got it.
nah, I mean like nah, but
Alright.
800 of those days, like
Mhm.
out of the 1,000 days he was in there,
Okay.
was in solitary.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
800 days. Can you imagine 800 days just being in a box, like
Locked
Isolated.
animal, caged up.
isolated? I'm sure you probably was hearing things, talking to him, like
Mhm.
you know, like you start. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's
Mind start playing tricks on you.
yeah. So you could just kind of just, if y'all can, our viewers out there, just envision that, you being in solitary confinement for 800 days out of your 1,000 or whatever it was. You want to say, well, that's 85. Let's say 80% of your time spent in jail, you in like this little wall, like these four corner walls that's so tight. So just think about the mental state he was at, when he
Right.
did get released or whatever. So he wound up doing 3 years. Gets released in society. He goes back home or to his foster parent. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's foster mom.
Foster
house,
mom. Just think about you being locked up for 3 years for a crime you didn't do, the things you witnessed inside the jail. It's like where do I start? Where would be like the first thing to do type of ordeal? Being locked up for a crime that you didn't commit. So fast forward, I think after 3 years he was in there, he wound up going home. 2 years after that, he commits suicide.
Yep.
Commits suicide, right? So yeah, so that's, like I said, without giving too much detail, that's kind of sums it up in a nutshell of some of the things that he was just going through. But they said that in just my observation, he probably couldn't adjust back to society and everything that he was going through inside the jail. He probably was like, man, it's not worth living no more type of ordeal. Just think about all the post-traumatic stress, the depression he was going through, schizophrenia. He probably was hearing things in his head, all types of crazy stuff.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't even imagine, man. It's like you being trapped in a box, and then you're also trapped in your mind, because think about it, like, your mind start, playing tricks on you. You start probably hearing things, seeing things. You never know.
Yeah.
Right. And when he was released or whatever, and he was home and things like that, he was telling his foster mom, like, yo, like the TV keeps talking to me. The TV keep talking to me.
Okay.
Right. So he wound up throwing the TV out.
Okay.
And then he was just, it's just one of them things, like he couldn't really be around people too much because, he thought people was talking about him, talking to him.
Okay.
And it wasn't really the case.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a moment, and go into and showing a clip of the whole Huffington Post article or documentary,
Okay.
or the segment that the Huffington Post did for Kalief Browder, highlighting the situation. And before, after everything was done, he got a lot of publicity. Like he went on the Rosie O'Donnell show. He went on.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember
he went
seeing
on
that.
Huffington Post. He went. It went viral, man. Just the outcry of this young man, and how wrongfully the justice system did him. And then not just that, being a minority, but think about, that's just one out of maybe the 100,000 or
whatever.
million or
Yeah.
whatever that's been wrongfully accused.
Mhm.
That's in, because you hear stories like that all the time, and it's stories you probably don't even hear because they probably give up some money and say, hey, I'm sorry, get your life back together, and my bad.
Yeah,
You
right.
know?
Like it's nothing.
Like it's nothing if you took a couple years out of somebody's life.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we're gonna go into the clip.
Yeah, we're gonna go into the
before we
Huffington
go into
Post
the clip. I see everybody that's tuned in. I appreciate it on our Facebook Live and our social media. I'm gonna get to all y'all comments that you guys been leaving. A lot of people was interested in this story or whatever. It may be touching close to home, or they might have went through this situation. Just being locked up or whatever, incarcerated. So we definitely gonna get to the comments or whatever. I want to definitely make sure we get to that as well towards the end of the show.
Okay.
A lot of people been hitting me as well on their
Okay.
opinions on the situation.
Nah, most definitely. But yeah, if we get to that clip.
Now, Kalief Browder, a New York man who spent 3 years behind bars without ever being convicted of a crime, has taken his own life. Browder was a 16-year-old high school sophomore when he was arrested for robbery. Unable to make bail, Browder spent the next 3 years on Rikers Island. one of the country's toughest jails, spending much of his time in solitary confinement. Mark Lamont Hill spoke with Khalif here on HuffPost Live after his release. Take a look at a bit of that last interview.
It was real stressful. I mean, there was times, there was nights when I couldn't go to sleep because all I thought about was when I go home, what would be the first thing I would do. There was times when I had cried myself to sleep, and it was hard, the whole thing, and being in there with the correction officers and them making my stay even harder. That was one of the main things that had me stressed. I felt like I was done wrong. I felt like something needed to be done about this. I felt like something needs to be said. If I just cop out and say that I did it, nothing's gonna be done about it. I didn't do it. No justice is served. Nobody hears nothing at all. I felt like I had to fight.
Mark is with me now. Mark, thanks for being here this morning. I mean, obviously an incredibly heartbreaking story here. But for those who maybe aren't even familiar with what happened, how this is possible within the system, talk to us more about Khalif and how it was that he spent 3 years behind bars without ever being convicted of a crime.
Yeah, and for a long time not even charged. You know, he was arrested. He had no idea. According to Khalif, he has no idea why he was charged. He has no idea why he was picked up on the street. He was just walking down the street. He ends up in Rikers Island waiting for, and remember, this isn't a prison. He was in the jail part of it. So he was waiting for sentencing, or waiting for, excuse me, for a trial that never came. He think it was suspended a few times, it was delayed a few times. Ultimately, it didn't happen. They eventually dropped the charges or dropped and let him go. So it's not even as if the state is suggesting that he committed a crime at this point. They say they had reasonable suspicion to pick him up, but they're not even suggesting that he did anything wrong at this point. So the question then becomes not just why is he there, but how does he get treated while he's in there? And when Khalif was in there, he was essentially tortured. This is a kid who was suffering clearly from mental health issues, subjected to extraordinary trauma in prison. But instead of being put in a mental health facility, he was put in segregated housing, essentially what they call the hole, for long periods of time. He would spend weeks by himself, alone. Every major study, every major human rights organization has suggested that this is torture. But for this kid in particular, it was particularly onerous. And then on top of that, the COs, for whatever reason, didn't like him. And when he would complain about the lack of support he was getting or lack of help, they would punish him more. He told me that they would starve him, meaning instead of getting 3 trays a day of food, sometimes he would get 1 tray. Sometimes he would go 2 or 3 days without food at all. They would look into his cell and see that he was crying, see that he was huddled in a corner, see that he was throwing up. They saw that he had attempted to kill himself. They did nothing.
He told you that he attempted to kill himself 6 times while he was in custody. I mean, it's really just mind-blowing to hear the kind of treatment that he was put through. Sadly, he's not the only one, right? I mean, this happens to so many people that are inside the criminal justice system here in the United States. What do you think that it says overall, a case like Khalif's, about the way that we deal with mental health as a society?
You don't have any functional way of dealing with mental health. There's already the shame and stigma attached to it in the broader world. And then when you get into prison, it's seen as another sign of weakness, not just by inmates, but even by the people whose job it is to oversee the prison. And so you have COs who are saying, oh, he's a bitch, that's what they'll say. And they'll put him in segregated housing, or they'll starve him, or they'll put him in a situation where he has to defend himself. One of the things that we did here at HuffPost Live 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, was we showed the video and the footage that the New Yorker covered, where we saw COs attacking him for no reason. We saw them throw him into a room with a bunch of young men who were of one gang or one set, and they all jumped Khalif and beat him, again, as punishment for what they saw as Khalif's weakness. And so it's almost institutionalized and normalized. And again, this isn't an exception. What we're seeing all around the country right now is a wave of video releases that are not showing exceptions or extraordinary circumstances, but are giving us a window into the day-to-day realities of the criminal injustice system in America.
Yeah, well, I think the video evidence is making that very clear. At least that's sparking a national kind of conversation and dialogue here, and even wide pushes for criminal justice reform from those that are running for public office or already in that position. But, more about Khalif's case, too. He did have the option to be released, but he refused to plead guilty for something that he says he didn't do. Was this just an attempt to break someone, and how important was it for him to not have something like that on his record that he wasn't responsible for?
Well, that's also being speculated, right? That because he wouldn't just take a plea. They say, you can go home, just say you did it. We'll give you a suspended sentence, we'll give you time served. He'd already done he wouldn't have done 3 years for an attempted robbery anyway. He said no, it was a principle issue for him. But the principles combined with a very pragmatic understanding that to be young and black male in a country like this, where when you get out, in many states you can't get a job, Black people couldn't get jobs before they went to jail. You can't get access to public housing on certain charges. Like, for example, if it were a drug conviction, you couldn't get access to public housing. You couldn't get student loans for a very long time. And in many states, at least 13 of them, you can't vote. So after a felony conviction. And so there are differential outcomes. It's a second-class citizenship, what Michelle Alexander calls a new Jim Crow. So for him, it was like, hey, this will ruin my life, this will ruin my record, but most importantly, I'm going to stand on principle. And because he stood on principle, they tried to break him. The state didn't kill him directly. He committed suicide. But I firmly believe that Rikers Island has blood on its hands. This killing was aided and abetted by the state.
So what's Khalif's legacy going to be?
I hope it'll be a springboard, in the same way that Mike Brown was a springboard, in the same way that Trayvon Martin was a springboard into a broader conversation about policing. I need for Khalif's story to be a springboard into a conversation about mass incarceration, about segregated housing as torture, and about the need to really, really take mental health seriously in mass incarceration facilities. Until we do that, we have a national, not just crisis, but a shame on our hands.
Incredibly tragic story, and of course our thoughts are with Khalif's family and loved ones. Mark, thanks for being here this morning.
My pleasure.
Now, Browder's fight will continue. According to his attorney, Browder's lawsuit against the NYPD, the Bronx District Attorney, and several Rikers corrections officers will move forward.
We're back, everybody. I hope you had opportunity to check out the video that was posted in regards to the whole Khalif Browder and the interview that they had for the Huffington Post document. What do you what's your thoughts on that whole video?
Man, just heartfelt type of thing, man. Just being able to hear the story and seeing some of the things, or hearing some of the things that he had to go through. You feel like you locked up. People that's there supposed to protect you and oversee things. They don't have your best interest. So it's kind of like, who can you trust when you're inside there? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of, it's definitely a touchy situation. Seeing some of the things that's going on inside of the in the jails and the incarcerations and everything.
Right. One thing I'm gonna actually research and look into is, once they found out that the injustice was going on internally within the whole criminal justice system, and I know it's probably going to be a case that takes forever, because especially when it comes to the criminal justice system as a whole, and the injustice in the system as a whole, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, especially like the district attorney or the lawyer who took the case on behalf of Khalif Browder. Okay. I just really wanted to see, what some type of justice done, or some type of reform done for these individuals, man. And one of which I think they have to do away with, because it's already bad enough that they are already isolated and incarcerated and dealing with the animalistic type of mentality from the other offenders that's in there, or felons that's in there, or what have you. But to do away with that whole solitary confinement approach, just all in all, like find an alternative.
Yeah, definitely. Cause I don't know how I'd be able to stand that type of thing. But they definitely need to find some type of alternative approach to deal with. I'm not saying they act up or whatever, treat them a pat on the back, but it's definitely got to be something. Put a window or something inside that place to give them some sunshine or something, because I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how they dealing with that part of my
right. But a couple stats and talking about solitary confinement, and I'll let you go into that, man. In regards to some of the stats from Rikers Island, and this is just overall, this is just the whole solitary confinement statistic from what they've seen in the past from Rikers Island and dealing with the whole solitary confinement piece.
Got you. I apologize. So we have more than 80,000 people are isolated in state and federal prisons. For people who spend long stretches in solitary, or possible mental health effects includes depression, anxiety, and psychosis. Officials in New York agreed to stop placing most inmates aged 21 and younger in solitary confinement. The types of treatments that we have for mental health while incarcerated is hospital, which is most common, medication, and also therapy.
Right. So I want to take a minute. I know you had some questions on your feed and everything. Do you still? Okay.
Facebook joint.
Okay. So want to take a minute to address any type of questions, comments our listeners are having, around this whole issue, around incarceration and mental health. If there are any professionals that's out there that's also listening that specialize in this type of, I guess, dynamic when it comes to incarceration and dealing with the ex-offenders who maybe are suffering from any type of mental health issues. Feel free, chime in, ask any questions, provide any feedback. We're definitely always, we're always trying to hear, from different angles and different perspectives. So
I have a
Yeah.
want me to get into a comment
Yeah,
that I
go
had.
ahead.
So we have a comment from Tanisha Turin on our Facebook, in regards to this case. And she stated that I think this documentary is definitely going to allow for more dialogue about mental health in the judicial system. Additionally, I would like to see cases like this add to the body of literature that identifies the post-traumatic stress disorder. Also, it can be passed down through generations and share family genes, especially since recent research revealed that when people experience trauma, it changes their genes in very specific and noticeable ways. So when these people have children and their genes are passed down to the children also inherit the genes affected by trauma. Unfortunately, in this case, the individual committed suicide, but I still think they're relevant information that can be added to the body of research.
That was good. That was
I
good.
appreciate you, Tanitra, on your comment. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, I also feel that even with the COs, they need to have some type of behavior management type training, man.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just because I feel like with the COs, and I don't know the training that they go through, but I feel like they probably just kind of hire you should be able to go to. I feel like if with any profession, if this is considered a profession, you need to go to school. 3 months training, 6 months training is not a lot to deal. Because if you're in an environment where you're dealing with these, this negative energy and these type of people that's dealing with these, regardless of the crime or whatever, and you're dealing with these behaviors, you should be able to identify some of the triggers, that these individuals may be having, and identify some of the mental health issues, just to alleviate, the suicidal, ideations that may be going on, and all the killings. I'm quite sure a lot of killings inside the jail cells. To alleviate that, you want to, be able to train these COs so they, like I said, they throwing the kid inside the little rec room or whatever so he can fight just because he showed weakness. Like,
Right.
That's unconstitutional,
Right.
in my opinion, and unethical.
Right. It's a huge human rights issue also, man, at the same time. Like what was explained on that first video. But
I got one more.
yeah, go ahead.
I got one more comment. And I apologize. I had my my Facebook Live was it was going bananas. But I want him exiting it out. But I had a lot of comments. I have Jason Wilson. I know he spoke earlier about when prisoners get released, how they don't really have like how we saying resources to jobs moving forward once they get out. I think the main thing is probably I would say try to pick up a trade. I don't know, cause when you get a job and you're going in your your interview, you got to mention you was locked up, or you got to mention you was a convicted felon, or you have a misdemeanor, wherever the case may be. And that's just trust me, you're not getting any type of real job per se. That type of offense on your charge. They'll just look the other way and hire somebody who's more qualified and don't have to deal with those type of individuals.
Right. And to that point, in regards to the whole trade, and have some type of vocational type training around that if they want to release. A lot of the times they have programs in there okay. GED. They have they also have trainings for and for example, my girls, my fiance's dad been incarcerated before,
Okay.
And for a while. However, he went in there and picked up multiple trades. He read multiple books. He he did the time. He didn't let the time do him. you
Okay.
know. And even still being released, he's really had an issue with finding employment.
Yeah, definitely.
This man knows how to build a house from the ground up,
Okay.
build a deck, whatever you need, he could do it.
Yeah.
And one thing I think that a lot of people fear, because his is more of a violent type of offense, but one thing people got to understand that is, people need second chances. Sometimes they need maybe a third and fourth chance sometimes.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
if they trying to be a citizen or what is the word for it?
Product citizen.
Productive citizen in
productive
today's
citizen.
society.
Yeah.
I would say give them a chance or opportunity. One thing I think that maybe, with, like they have like the job, placement agencies and things like that, but have a listing of just those who hire offenders.
Yeah, definitely.
So that way, and I don't know if it's out there. I didn't look into it, so I may be just talking prematurely here,
Yeah.
just from my lack of knowledge on it. But just having some type of just a resource pool that they can pull from, and even prior to being released from prison, to have maybe some type of maybe a phone interview or something like that. So by the time they come out, they can have some type of placement or job placement on the time that they are released,
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe we need to open up some type of reentry program or something, man. What you think?
I think that'd be good, man.
Good idea for offenders who's getting out of prison, help them become a productive citizen of society.
Right.
I think that might be a good idea.
No,
Definitely.
absolutely. So, real quick, I want to thank our sponsors again. We have Bridging the Gap Family Services and also God and Light Residential Services sponsoring today's show. And we also wanted to touch on this second part, the first part of the whole. I want to show you guys a trailer real quick for the whole Kalief Browder on Stars, here that, on Wednesday, I believe at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock is going to be the second part. And I'm not sure before that they'll be able to show, if they're going to be showing the prior, documentary from last week. But make sure you tune in Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Okay.
For the whole Kalief Browder story. So we're going to get into the trailer really quickly, and we'll be back in a second.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Today is May 15, 2010. The time is now about 7:47 in the evening.
I just needed to get my story out.
And you are Mr. Kalief Browder, is that correct?
Yes.
I was going home from a party.
911 operator 1719, where's emergency?
Two male black guys, they took my brother book bag.
There was a guy saying that I robbed him. They said, we're going to take you to the precinct.
Did you rob somebody in the beginning part of May, Mr.
No.
Browder?
No.
The time is now 10 to 8. This interview is concluded.
They said, most likely we're going to let you go home.
Rikers. Violent jails in the country.
All right. Look what he's doing. Stop resisting.
But then
What the fuck is wrong with you, man?
I never went home.
Kalief was my son. I know what he went through. I went through a lot with him.
I felt like I was done wrong. I felt like something needed to be done about this. If I just say that I did it, nothing's gonna be done about it. I didn't do it. No justice is served. Nobody hears nothing at all. I had to fight. You want me to walk away like it's okay? It's not okay. I lost my childhood. I lost my happiness.
They've destroyed my life, my family's life.
911 emergency. Ma'am?
This is supposed to be the greatest city in the world. And we're supposed to trust in this justice system. Where's the justice?
And we're back. Back at the Mind Break Radio show, brought to you by Bridging the Gap Family Services, God and Light Residential Services, and also NAACP Behavioral Health Board. Mel Dash here.
Jay Hood. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This topic towards Kalief Browder. It's definitely an open discussion that we all need to have on, just not incarceration, the judicial system. The things that's plaguing in today's society around geared towards mental health, issues that we all may be having.
Absolutely. So we're here every Tuesday, 4 p.m. On ListenVisionLive.com. Make sure you tune in. We're also on our social media pages. You can follow me, IG, Mel_, MELL_dash. You can follow us at Mind Break Radio. I'm also on Facebook, Ramel, RAHMELL -DASH. And you can follow me there as well. We're going to be live stream like every week, so,
Yeah, every Tuesday. Check us out, man, 4 p.m. Check us out. Shout out to our sponsors again, Bridging the Gap Family Services, God and Light Residential Services, and
NAACP.
Definitely. So like I said, we want to thank everybody for tuning in on all of our social media networks. Once again, we'll be here next week, Tuesday at 4 p.m. You can check us at listenvisionlive.com or all of our social media topics. If you guys have any, suggestions or any questions or comments, any topics that you might want to talk about or anything you want to get off your chest, you just go ahead and shoot us an inbox or email or whatever. For the most part, you guys got our information. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, giving your input. It's definitely appreciated. I appreciate everything.
Mm-hmm. But before we close out the show, what we're going to do is we're going to show a quick clip. We're not going to show the whole thing, probably 2 minutes of it, but it's about this program, the Rikers Island, on a positive note that they have in place, more for behaviors with the juveniles, and really allowing them in a more of a classroom setting to express their feelings and things like that to help try to reduce recidivism rate at Rikers Island was a pilot program for this particular program. So we're going to get into that. We'll see you guys back here next Tuesday at 4 p.m.
4 p.m.
And make sure you tune to listenvisionlive.com.
Yep.
Sense of financial news.
High school on New York City's Rikers Island, the world's largest jail. Though they make up just 6% of the population, the teen inmates here pose some of the biggest problems.
They contribute to 28% of all of the fights, which is the most common form of misconduct in a jail setting.
Dora Schriero is New York City Corrections Commissioner.
This group, one of the areas where they are terrifically weak is in decision-making and problem-solving. And their propensity to impulsively rely on fights rather than insight really contributes to how they got here and why it is that every 1 out of 2 are likely to come back pretty quick.
In other words, nearly 50% are back in jail within a year of their release. That's why New York City officials have just launched a program that puts every 16 to 18-year-old entering Rikers, almost as soon as the bars slam shut, into a class called Moral Reconation Therapy, or MRT, a form of behavioral modification to improve decision-making.
We can go back in time and change one thing. What would it be? What year would you go back to? And why?
Now, cognitive therapy like MRT isn't new. It's been around for decades. But it is new on Rikers. Also new, the cash-strapped city is using an innovative private investment vehicle called a social impact bond, a type of loan to fund it.
We're going to start from there.
MRT starts small, drawing pictures of happier times, like a real or imagined skydiving jump. talking about feelings.
When I get nervous, I feel like I want to shut down and not do anything.
Because they're minors, we can't show student faces. It's all part of a 12-step process that moves from the most basic psychological concepts to higher goals. Studies show that MRT can reduce recidivism by 20 to 30%. And the more steps they master, the more likely these kids will be to stay out of jail.
You got everything working with you, and you're moving in a positive direction now.
Jafar Abbas and Karima Nichols are counselors with the Osborne Association, the nonprofit hired by New York to run MRT on Rikers.
It starts out slow with pictures and stuff, but as it progresses to 12 steps, is that they get more difficult. And that's what we want. We want you to get out of the box that you put yourself in and start looking for higher things.
Just the fact that they were even willing to talk in group, like that is a big step for someone at that age. That's a sign of real maturity.
As when this boy was asked to recount his best of times.
One is winning my first basketball championship when I was in middle school. Second is I got my first job. Third is when I got my middle school diploma, and when I went to high school and got my first computer.
And worst of times?
First is jail. Two was going to court and not know what's going to happen, or when you go home. The jail bus ride, being in a place where you're treated like an animal, you literally caged up most of the time of the day.
Do you notice a connection between the best times in your life and the worst times? What's the relationship between those two lists? Or pattern?
But the pattern of what the best thing in my life is that it's little things that I never thought was big until I came here. And in jail, I can't control the outcome that's going on when I'm here.
None of these kids want to be in jail, and our message to them is, you have control.
Susan Gottesfeld helps run the Osborne Association.
Cognitive behavioral therapy is not a coddling, huggy, touchy-feely, fuzzy intervention. It's an evidence-based therapy that works for lots and lots of different people, for lots and lots of different things.
What's the key to the cognitive change?
So if we want to change outcomes, we have to change behavior. And if we want to change behavior for the long run, we have to change the way we think, right? And for a lot of these kids, it's a realization. I can choose to do that in a good way, or I can choose to do that in a negative way.
But will it keep enough kids from coming back to Rikers to save the city enough money to pay back investors? Let's face it, transformation does not come easy. At Rikers, says Commissioner Schreiro,
you never know for sure until the day they leave how long they're going to be there. So we really needed to figure out how to make the most out of every day, not wait for our next class to start. Grab them, the minute they get in, engage them right away, and keep them engaged right to the time that they go back out to the streets.
Those released from Rikers have the option of continuing their 12-step therapy at offices in Brooklyn and the Bronx. Dwayne Arthur has been seeing counselor Victoria Phillips since getting out of a 2-week stint at Rikers in January.
For the icebreaker today, I want to know what are some of the things that you try to control but can't control?
First is my urges. Sometimes you can't control your emotions.
Okay, sometimes you can't control your emotions, but can you control the actions that follow the emotions?
Yes.
And since you've been here, are we starting to see that you are controlling your actions?
Yes.
But who has he hurt?
Worked hard the whole